What's up, guys? It's Rob here, and today we need to talk about Camber Energy, ticker symbol CEI. This is an oil stock that is pumping up massively. There are a bunch of big catalysts moving this thing up. Something monumental just happened, all right? Something very crazy just happened in Europe that could be moving this stock up further. We'll see what happens from it, but there are a bunch of catalysts moving this thing, and there are a couple of things to watch for if you're interested in this stock, and we're going to talk about those. So you can see that this stock, if you look over the past 10 days or so, has been moving up massively as of late, all right? It's nearing the highs that it got to on a previous pump. It's gotten about half as high. It got to around $2. The previous high was close to $4. It's almost 50% there, and there is a lot more going for it at the moment than what it had going on back there. All right, there are a couple of things that could happen to this stock, which would move it up a lot more than where it previously was. All right, now we are looking at a bunch of different reports coming out of both the United States and Europe regarding oil prices. And that's important for CEI because CEI, Camber Energy, is an oil company. They operate in the United States and are thus not exposed to the Russian oil markets. Now, crude oil prices are jumping because people are sanctioning Russia over the invasion of Ukraine. We're looking at crude oil being banned in the United States, at least banning Russian crude oil imports in the United States. And breaking news just now, just minutes ago, the EU pledges to cut Russian gas imports by 2/3 before the end of the year. Now, this is having a dramatic effect on crude oil prices. They are absolutely skyrocketing, as you can see. Over the past 5 years, this is the highest they've ever been. Not quite the highs of all time, but over the past year, it's an incredibly dramatic upshoot in price that we're looking at. You can see it's something that we've hardly ever seen in the past, right? But basically, only when there's a real catastrophe do oil prices shoot up this high. Now, this is very beneficial for a lot of oil companies whose costs aren't necessarily increasing to get the oil out of the ground. They're then able to profit a whole lot more. Now, CEI is probably moving up more than is justified by the fundamental increase in how much additional revenue they're getting. Potentially, it's justifiable, but they have moved up quite a bit more than most other oil companies. Now, once again, they're a small company. They're a small market cap company sitting below $1 billion, only $490 million market cap. And that's after they've already pumped up about 3x where they were a couple of weeks ago. If you look, their lows of 45 cents, they're closer to $1.50 now. So they've about 3x'd in price. So they've already moved up pretty dramatically. But once again, their market cap is still relatively small, still $490 million. It's not impossible for them to move up much more than this. In fact, less than a year ago, they were far higher than this, right? They were hitting highs of 485 intraday. Now, CEI does have some more potential. Right now, I will say it's on a little bit of a pullback from the highs of the day. It got bounced off of near $2, and we're going to see if it can regain those levels. There are a couple of things to watch for that could mean they're on the rise again, okay? There are a couple of things regarding gas. First off, if you're noticing oil prices continue to rise, which we just saw another 2% increase moments ago when the EU pledged to cut Russian gas imports, then that would likely contribute to the rise of CEI as well. But there's something else very key, right? Not just should you be looking at oil prices, because these are the fundamental reason why CEI is rising, right? This is the main cause. You could also be looking at Zach Morris's Twitter. And the reason that you might want to look at Zach Morris's Twitter is because Zach Morris was responsible for the big CEI pump that we saw in the past. Now, it was on hopes for a short squeeze in the past, but a lot of the interest that was driven and rallied behind CEI was due to Zach Morris. And it really started around here where he was able to pump this thing up to nearly all-time highs, at least for the year, of $4.85. Now, that ended up getting killed off by a short report from Carousel Capital. However, if you look at the short interest on CEI right now, it's not nearly as high as it was during the peaks of this last pump. Currently, it's sitting around 10%, 28 million shares short, just about, at least as estimated by Ortex. Obviously, there's some margin of error there, but all in all, shorts don't have the heaviest position. They do have a sizable position. If this thing went up massively in value, then you could potentially see some of them getting squeezed out. But as of right now, no shorts really have too much leverage, right? There aren't too many shorts out there with massive, massive positions like there were in the past when this thing was hitting 70 million shares short. We're less than half of that right now. In the past, there were a lot of shorts who stood to benefit quite a bit. Obviously, right now, shorts stand to benefit a little bit if they can crash the price, but it's going to be very tough to do when there are fundamental reasons why the company is rising, such as the upshoot in oil prices that we've been seeing. So it's going to be tougher for shorts to crash this thing like they did in the past, which they did pretty darn successfully. Now, what's going on right now is Russia is warning of $300 oil. So $300 per barrel, that's more than a doubling of what we're seeing right now. That's probably not going to be the case. I don't think we'll see $300 oil. We could get higher than we are now. We could certainly get much higher than we are now, but 300 seems a little bit out of the question at the moment. But any increase in oil is probably going to be good for CEI because, once again, that's the underlying factor which is causing this thing to pump up. Now, another thing to pay attention to is the interest overall that this thing is getting. On Google, you can see CEI stock is getting record search trends. You might want to watch for when this starts to slow down. That could be an indication that we're at the top. And also on StockTwits, it's the number 2 top trending stock. It would not surprise me, actually, to see this thing overtake MULN, as it's up a little bit more than MULN and has a very similar count. I mean, it's only about 20 mentions behind MULN. Right now, CEI is rapidly growing. We're going to see what happens with the price. We're probably going to see some resistance at $2 like we saw earlier today. But it is notable that CEI has ran much higher than that in the past, and the all-time resistance would probably be closer to 5. So that's really where this thing could top out if we do top out. If we haven't already topped out, there's no guarantee that this play is going to continue running, though. And, it would be probably something that I would be considering doing is taking profits along the way. If you're really in the green, it always makes sense to me most of the time to start taking some smaller profits along the way whenever you're in the green and not holding everything. That's just my opinion. It's not financial advice, but that's what I tend to practice. I think that it helps your psychology to not have everything riding on stock moving up or down minute by minute. It does help to slowly take some profits as the stock is rising. And obviously, you don't end up reaching the max profit, but it's very tough to pick the exact top. And if you're constantly selling a little bit of it as it rises higher and higher, then you're almost guaranteed to hit somewhere near the top with some of those sales at the very least. And it does help to lock in some profits. So that's something that I would look at if you're super green on CEI. I mean, maybe you were buying this thing, surely some people were buying it when it was around the 40-cent level, right? When it was at 45 or 50 cents. And in which case, you've already 3x your money. Maybe you want to start taking a little bit out. Obviously, you could do a whole lot better. This thing could move up much further. I've bought into CEI, and we're going to see what happens with it. I'm going to ride this one out a little bit, but I will be taking profits probably once this thing starts breaking past $2. That will be when I start to take some profits, and we'll see how much further it can go. But with the new news that we're getting based on Russian bans EU bans of Russian oil, not necessarily bans of it initially, but a huge cutting out of Russian oil, we're going to see that oil need to come from somewhere, and it's likely going to result in much higher prices. It's going to result in much higher competition for oil across the world, and CEI is probably going to benefit from that. So that's just my opinion on the stock. I think we're looking at a pretty good situation stock price-wise in the near term. Now, obviously, a lot of these pump plays end up having a peak. Oil itself will probably have some kind of peak. My guess is we're not going to hit all-time highs with oil and then remain at all-time highs and just sit flat. My guess is there's going to be some kind of a peak on oil. So that could also be something to watch for. If there's ever a day when you see oil dropping massively, that could be the end for CEI as well, right? Because CEI is moving up on this oil news. But also something important that we mentioned earlier is Zach Morris. You want to watch out. He has not yet mentioned CEI as of late, but you'll want to see if he says anything about it. And if he does, that could really rally a whole bunch of support. So he's someone to keep your eye on with this whole CEI situation. And keep in mind, guys, none of this is financial advice. I'm just letting you guys know what I'm up to, what news stories I'm looking at, and some of the catalysts that CEI is going for. But I'm not recommending anyone do anything with their money. I'm just letting you guys know what I think about the stock and the whole situation. So if you guys appreciate that, feel free to subscribe to the channel. And other than that, guys, have a great day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.